Don your snorkels and prepare those ice baths, because we're about to plunge into the frigid waters of autistic burnout, and we promise the payoff will be worth the pain. In an episode that wasn't designed to hurt your feelings but still might, Grace is leading the way through the Autism Burnout Symptom Checklist, explaining how a shrinking window of tolerance results in faster dysregulation, and attempting to lovingly bully you into resting and healing your nervous system. If you've forced yourself to push through the discomfort for so long that now you couldn't be bothered to dig your own grave even if you wanted to, come join us for an eye-opening look into burnout that will have you quitting your job and moving into the woods in no time.
They said that we'd grow out of it. Well, the joke's on them, that's just our brains. We're eccentric, loud, and stubborn, and most of our clothing is covered in stains. It's not a deficit of attention, there's just too much to think about. So if executive dysfunction becomes a little too much, if you forgot why you came in this room, or you're hypersensitive to touch, then put on your seamless socks and come join our little flock. Bitches stimming together, we're weirds of a feather, weirds of a feather.
Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. All right, warm up.
We are warm.
We're getting there. I don't have a warm-up question, so let's just do this for a little bit, because this is a long episode. I don't want to get us started. No, we don't have time for a warm-up question.
We don't have time.
There's no time.
There's no time
so
for it. We're just
let's do our mouth
in.
stretches. Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa. Wow.
Maybe a neck stretch.
Yeah,
Did
neck
you
crack.
hear that?
I heard it.
Ooh.
Wow, 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 wow.
No. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I feel pretty warm.
Like the professionals do.
Yeah.
Vocal warm-ups.
I'm sure
Feeling
that
loose?
sounds great on the recording.
Boom.
Boom.
Boom. Boom.
Boom.
What does that sound like?
Boom. It sounds like you're like unplugging a spring.
Yes. Unplugging a spring, whatever that means. Or like throwing something on a piece of metal. I'm like, there's...
And it's like, wow, wow, wow.
Yeah, and the metal's kind of
wow.
like, oscillating. Oscillating metal.
It's a good word.
Thank you.
It's a nice
Word
vocabulary.
of the day. WAD.
The
Oscillating.
Well,
right. Yeah? You doing it?
welcome
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Weirds of a Feather, an ADHD-Adjacent podcast. I'm your host, Kristen Stanhope,
And I'm your host, Grace Beret.
and we've got an episode.
We do.
Heavy duty.
That's why you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's going to be, I'm taking the lead on it. So as always, it's info packed.
Yep.
And we're going to get a little serious at some points today, but you guys are grown-ups or your children and you can handle it.
You're either grown-ups or you're not.
Yeah. And either way, you can handle it and we believe in you.
Yeah.
And, we'll still be silly, but we do have some, kind of serious things to cover up top. But first, shall we do those little accomplishments?
Yeah.
All right.
Little accomplishments, but big in our hearts. Grace,
Yes.
what'd you do? What'd you accomplish?
All right. I don't know if this will sound like an accomplishment to everyone, but
I
I'm
think
proud
that's
of it.
the whole point of
Okay,
little
yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's like why we made the whole segment, is because it's a little thing that you accomplished that maybe traditionally people wouldn't be proud of you, but you should be proud of it.
You're
did
right.
it,
Non-traditional accomplishments.
right? That is the whole premise of the thing.
That's what we're here for.
That's
the whole
why
thing of the thing.
That's why we're here.
That's exactly why.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I want to say Lily told me that I got rid of my Christmas tree before she did. She did it after
there
me.
you go. Yeah.
She was even later than I was.
Look at that. See?
So,
proud of you.
Good job, Lily, and congratulations to me for beating you.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice?
Well, it's not a race.
But if it were, I would have won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would have.
She's just always so much better at that stuff than I am.
Well,
so when she
maybe
told me
she-
that, I was like, yes.
Maybe
You know?
she just really liked her tree.
She did. She had a great tree. So
Did
it was,
she?
that's what I was thinking. It's probably
That's
just so
good.
cozy. Didn't want to take it down. And I don't blame her. It's like we need, business idea. We need some type of lit up corner plant piece for people to put there in place of a Christmas tree that kind of gives the same vibe. I know you could just put a plant there and put
a regular plant
lights
there,
on it,
or a fake plant.
I want it to be like a thing, like the way you put up a Christmas tree. It's kind of like a set thing.
But it's all year round.
Yeah.
So it's just called a decoration.
Yeah. So just a decoration.
I don't know if it's a business idea.
But it kind of gives you the same vibe as a Christmas tree without being a Christmas tree. So it's kind of specific. Like there's a whole routine to it. Like you set it up the way you do a Christmas tree, but it's not a Christmas tree. You're right. This is just an individual idea I could do. But I don't know.
I don't know if you can make a business out of it, but I'd like to see you try.
I could try, maybe. Put it on the list. All right. So my real little accomplishment this week.
Yeah.
I defrosted chicken from the freezer and I made it for dinner.
All in one day?
Yep.
Wow.
Normally I either forget to defrost the chicken and then I just get home and I'm like, fuck, guess we can't have that for dinner. Or I do defrost the chicken and then I don't feel like making it that night. And then that happens a few nights in a row and then it's gone bad and I don't make it at all. That's happened so many times. I just end up throwing it away.
And you're like, God damn it.
Yeah. So I don't know, something about it. I just can't do it. So this time I defrosted it in the morning and then made it for dinner and folled through. I was very proud of myself.
We're going to invest in a chest freezer.
Ooh, we are too.
Actually, one of Christopher's coworkers is like giving his away. We're going to pay him for it, but he apparently has 2. He's a hunter. Anyway, we're going to get a chest freezer. So I'm excited to put a bunch of meat in there. Get that meat. And other things so we can, one, because our freezer and our regular fridge is very small, but we also want to buy locally, like meat locally. And apparently, yeah, you can buy like an entire cow at a time, which we don't want an entire cow, but we want like maybe a quarter cow and a couple chickens and stuff. And that way I feel better about getting my meat from a local source. And then I'm hoping that will reduce our food waste because that's one of our bigger struggles that we're struggling with.
Yeah, me too. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Just go downstairs, hack off a chunk.
Yeah.
Boom. You're ready.
Our next step is to actually raise cows. No.
Please don't.
We don't have the yard for that.
No. All right, Kristen, what did you accomplish?
Because I had to renew my medical license.
Woohoo! Yeah, you did.
I was very stressed about it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Well, it's really easy. The state of Maine makes it really easy. You just click a bunch of buttons and you're just, they're like, have you committed any crimes? And you're like, no, I haven't. And they're like, have you, sexually assaulted anybody? And you're like, nope, still negative. So I passed.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So
good job not committing crimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other things too in order to get there. But I did it and I was really worried about it. But now I'm not because it's all done.
Good job. You press those buttons and you are licensed.
Those buttons.
Licensed to operate.
Woo.
Literally.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Let's switch gears here a bit. Get into serious mode.
Yeah.
Not to bring the tone down, but
we're gonna have to.
How do I do this? I'm so awkward. I'm wiggling in my seat, trying to bring myself into
you got it
focus mode. All right.
Yeah.
So this episode is going to be about autistic burnout. But before we get into the episode, I need to do something that we should have done a while ago, but we haven't. And instead of feeling guilty and anxious about it and letting that stop us from doing it at all, we're just going to do it now because it's better late than never. And we don't want to let our personal fear about not having the exact right wording to say stop us from speaking out about what's right, especially when it comes to something this important.
Yeah.
We're also not a super serious podcast, and so I wasn't really sure if this was the platform to make a more serious statement like this, but we talk a lot about morality on here. We talk about having a strong reaction to injustice, and it's important to practice what we preach, obviously. And also, really, when I thought about it, what's the point of having a platform, as small and silly as this is, if we're not going to use it to increase awareness and help others in any way we can?
Yeah.
So we are now moving into the 5th month of a genocide against the Palestinian people. And what's happening over there is truly horrifying. No matter how you feel about Hamas or Israel, this issue should speak to your greater humanity. Nobody deserves to be bombed, to be starved, to have their access to water and electricity cut off, to be murdered in their homes, to be gunned down in hospitals and on escape routes that they were told were safe for simply trying to exist.
What's happening in Palestine is not a war, it is a genocide, and it's really important that we use that language. And if you feel differently, especially if you're in the US or another white country, it's just really important to consider the propaganda that you're being fed by people in power who have something to gain, by making you believe that Palestine deserves this. Nobody deserves this. Essentially, by making this statement, I'm not trying to tell you what to do or what to believe or how to think, but I do want to urge you to seek other sources outside of what these big news and media sources are telling you, which are all controlled, not to go down this path, but they're all controlled by a handful of wealthy people who, once again, have something to gain by you either being apathetic about a blatant human rights crisis or, even worse, by you believing that what's happening against Palestine is some form of justice. And really, after all, how can you make an informed decision on where you stand without having all the facts? So what this means is listening to Palestinian voices, seeking out information from Palestinian journalists, looking at the footage of what's being done to them and sitting with that. It's uncomfortable and it's horrifying, and it's easier to bury our heads in the sand, but they deserve to have their stories told, and it's our duty to witness their pain and suffering. And, when we think about it, we should feel uncomfortable. It should be upsetting. It, should tap into our humanity, and turning away from it means turning away from our humanity. It's really a privilege to be able to just shut off the news and pretend it isn't happening because it's not affecting us personally. And it really only serves the oppressors when we turn away instead of leaning in. The latest reports as of February 4th, this is the day we're recording, estimate that at least 27,365 people in Gaza have been killed, including more than 11,500 children. There are more than 66,630 people injured and more than 8,000 people missing. According to the latest data from the UN's Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, from the World Health Organization, and from the Palestinian government, as of February 4th, Israeli attacks have damaged more than half of Gaza's homes. That's 360,000 residential units that have been destroyed or damaged, 368 educational facilities, 122 ambulances, 221 places of worship, and 13 out of 35 hospitals are partially functioning. And by the time this comes out, that's going to be way fewer hospitals if there are any left. So people are dying without medical care, without access to food and water, without electricity. And even if the goal is to take out Hamas, is that really worth murdering thousands and thousands of innocent people to do so? And if you look inside your heart, does that really feel like justice to you? This is a humanitarian crisis. It isn't anti-Semitic to say you stand with Palestine. We, of course, love and support our Jewish brothers and sisters, and there are lots and lots of Jewish people who are in full support of Palestine because they know this isn't an issue of religion, it's an issue of human rights. So Palestinians, we want to let you know that we support you and we love you, and we know that this is not nearly enough for us to just say this, but we're hoping that by using our voices, we can make some small change, or at the very least, let you and others know that this is a safe place for you and that we're sorry for not speaking up sooner. We believe that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Obviously, this little rant did not do the subject justice. There's so much to it, and it's impossible to fully convey the horrors of what's happening and to provide the full historical context necessary to truly understand this long-standing issue, which is why I really just want this to serve as a jumping point for you to get curious, to put your initial reactions and preconceived notions about this issue aside, and to really spend some time reading, watching, and learning more about what's happening before making a final judgment. You owe it to yourself and to the Palestinian people to listen to the voices of the oppressed and to use the information available to you before making a decision on something as important as this. Some of the sources that I've personally been using for my own learning have been the Al Jazeera News Network, which is where I got those stats that I read off earlier, and then many accounts on Instagram, which I will include in the resources. But those are the Instagram handle at Let's Talk Palestine. That's a really great place to start. They have many, many easy to digest infographics explaining the apartheid and everything that's been happening since October 7th. There's Eye on Palestine is another great one. Gazan Girl. There's Jewish Voice for Peace. That's a great one if you're not really sure how, this ties in with Jewish people and Israel and Judaism. So that's a great place to go. There's also Ahmed Eldin on Instagram. He's an award-winning journalist reporting from the ground. There's a woman named Bisan. Her handle is at wizard_Bisan1. Like I said, these are all in the resources. She is a Palestinian filmmaker and a journalist who risks her life to provide updates from the ground about what's really happening. And then there's another account called at Decolonizing Therapy. It's a great account run by Dr. Jennifer Mullen, and that's an incredible resource for learning about the systems in place and how colonization ties into everything. And it also provides really great information about supporting your mental health in the face of a humanitarian crisis, which, of course, is super important on top of, providing resources. For other things you can do, you can also call your state representatives if you're in the U.S. and demand a ceasefire. More and more cities around the U.S. are calling for a ceasefire, and the more pressure we put on our representatives to do the right thing, the better, especially considering that our tax dollars are being used to fund this genocide.
Yeah.
And no matter what you believe, we should have a say in where our money is going, and it shouldn't be used for genocide.
Mm-hmm.
If you're anxious about making phone calls, which, we get it. You can call your representatives after hours and leave a voice message so you can be sure that you're not going to have to talk to anyone, and you can, they have scripts online that you can read. Or you can also send an email to your representatives. Anything is better than nothing, whatever you can do. There are also places you can donate. On Bison's Instagram account, she has a GoFundMe linked there, so you can donate there and provide aid to families in Gaza. You can also donate to humanappealusa.org to help provide food, water, medical aid, hygiene, winter kits, and water and fireproof tents to displaced families. And then you out there listening, if you have other trustworthy sources that you think are helpful for people to know about, or if you have other great organizations that people can donate to, please let us know and we will give those a shout out as well. I know that was a lot all at once, and sorry for getting a little serious, but this is something that I think we should all be speaking up against if, we have any type of voice or any type of power. Just, even just showing your support for Palestine, showing that you don't agree with what Israel is doing, what the U.S. is doing, I think is so important in the face of, like a televised genocide.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the privilege that we have to, we have the choice to kind of like shut off the TV or not watch that on, TikTok or Instagram, but or switch to a different website. But the people there don't have that choice. It's directly affecting them, and we're lucky enough to have the choice and the privilege, but that doesn't mean we have to ignore what's going on over there.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And this is something we weren't afraid to speak up because we were afraid of the repercussions of standing with Palestine. Like, I don't fucking care about that. It was more like I didn't know the right way to say things, but, it's like, while I'm feeling anxious about how to get the wording exactly perfect, like people are dying, so it's regardless of how imperfect what I said just was, it's important to be using our voices in any way we can. So if I said anything incorrect, or there's more you think I should be adding, please let us know. I'm very open to suggestions and everything, and just want to get that information out there and just have as many people as possible, just reconsidering things. If you're not sure where you stand, having some good resources where you can read the whole story instead of just kind of hearing whatever you're being told by people who have an agenda of why they're telling you certain things. So yeah, I think for any of these issues, it's just important that we're listening to the voices of the oppressed. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up.
All right. Yeah, of course. I'm sorry I didn't do it sooner. And now I feel like we need a little transition.
We need a little transition.
That was a serious...
I feel like it's hard to go from such a serious topic to something still serious, but we can be a little bit more silly about.
Yeah.
I don't know how
find
to
the right tone.
Navigate that.
Do we have a transition song we could do?
Did we write one?
No, but I mean just in general, just any song.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I got nothing. So
I'm out of ideas.
Let's just awkwardly jump from one thing into another. And yeah, I mean, the reason why I wanted to put this Palestine thing in with this episode is because I was just thinking about, as we're going to talk about autistic burnout, any of these issues that we're covering when it comes to anything that affects autistic people, ADHD people, disabled people, you really have to think about all of those people live in Palestine as well.
Yes.
Imagine an autistic person who's going, through burnout and then they're being fucking bombed. It's like,
how do you
function?
Right.
So I think that's another important thing to keep in mind, as we're talking about all of these things is, just how it's impacting everyone. So let's get into that meat. I guess we can do a meaty transition. It is the meat. There you
go.
How's that?
That was good. Concise,
smooth,
but necessary.
Yeah, that's all you got to say. All right. Autistic burnout.
That's what we're talking about.
What is it? What's going on?
I think this is long overdue.
Yes. And you, Kristen, were one of my inspirations for doing this episode.
No.
Yeah. I know you're thriving right now. Yeah.
I don't know if that is what you would call it.
Yeah. And it's, it's hard for me to watch you going through burnout. It's hard I feel like I'm just coming out of burnout that I've been in for the last few years. So this information is just like so necessary. And there's still so much lacking on this topic because, of course, the research isn't there because, they only study autistic people as if they're zoo animals and don't actually talk to autistic people about how to support them,
You have a David Attenborough narrating.
Yeah. With
what you see here is the autistic in the throes of burnout.
Yeah. Attempting to wash a dish.
See the tears running down their face.
Yeah.
They don't like the wet.
But they must venture forward. And then you've got the silly little goofy music from, what is it? The autistic dating show where they make
Love is...
Yeah, Love on the Spectrum.
Love on the Spectrum.
Love is on the Spectrum. Yeah, where the music they choose is as if you're watching a puppy is playing, but it's a fully grown woman getting ready for a date.
Right.
It's do, 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 this cutesy little music.
I haven't watched it.
Yeah, I mean, people have mixed reviews on it. Some autistic people like it, which is totally valid. You want to see yourself reflected in dating, but I do think the tone can be a little condescending with the music. The music is literally what you would see on Great British Bake Off or a bunch of puppies playing. It's this cutesy, silly
now I'm
music
gonna have to watch
for toddlers. Yeah, let me know what you think.
All right. Every time you say autistic burnout, I think of singing Autistic Burnout, but in the melody of Beauty School Dropout from Greece.
Autistic burnout. Go back to the bedroom. Nice. You got the but not the Maybe we could write a version of that.
Oh, like a parody.
Yeah. Probably not on the spot. But
no.
Go noodle on it.
Yeah. Let me noodle. I also need to take notes on this because I should probably check myself before I really wreck myself.
Yeah. You know what? Get a pen.
Yeah. Everybody
take
grab
a note.
Pen.
Yeah, but really. All right. So I'm going to start with my resources before we dive full throttle into this.
Do it.
The inspiration for this episode was Lana on TikTok at KeyLimeLana. She was talking about this autistic burnout symptoms checklist that really kind of sparked this whole episode. And so she's a great resource to kind of, learn about, to kind of hear her thoughts on that. I also have an article titled Autistic Burnout Symptoms, How to Spot Burnout by Dr. Megan Anna Neff, who actually Tracy had her on her podcast. So you can go and listen to episode...
Tracy from ADHD from Smart Ass Women?
Yes. You can go listen to episode 239 of ADHD for Smart Ass Women.
Oh, wait a minute.
Called ADHD, Autism, and Other Neurodivergent Insights with clinical psychologist Dr. Megan Anna Neff. I wrote the show notes. I also looked at a research article titled Having All of Your Internal Resources Exhausted Beyond Measure and Being Left with No Cleanup Crew, Defining Autistic Burnout.
What a title.
I feel like that right there is a good description of kind of sums up what autistic burnout is.
Yeah.
That's quite the title. I like that term with no cleanup crew also.
Yeah, I'd like a cleanup crew.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Business idea. We'll get back to
burnout cleanup crew.
Yes.
That'd be a great idea.
That would be a great idea.
I guess it's more just home help. But
they'd
I'd like to
come in as if they were the cleaning crew for Hoarders, an episode of Hoarders.
Yeah.
The tent outside.
Yeah. But I feel like they'll be, informed about burnout and it'll be specifically for people in autistic burnout, because shame only adds to more burnout.
Yeah. So maybe
it's hard to ask
don't
for
put
help.
the tent outside.
Yeah. Maybe not the tent. Maybe not the camera crews.
Yeah.
No tent.
Just help.
Just a few. Or maybe it's a crew of autistic people who have gone through burnout before. So they're like, we get it. I feel like those would be the only people I'd even feel comfortable allowing to help me.
Yeah, you don't want a neurotypical doing this kind of stuff. They don't know.
You're like, get a planner.
Yeah. Fuck your planners.
Just be happy. Just do it.
Just have you tried not being depressed?
Yeah. Just get off the couch. Don't be sad.
Yeah.
Come on. All right.
Go out in the sun.
I also used the Autistic Burnout Symptom Checklist by Dr. Alice Nichols.
I didn't know there was a checklist.
Yeah, and that's what Key Lime Lana mentioned in her TikTok, and that gave me a great resource, and that's why I did this episode. So, and I'm going to go through the checklist, don't worry. And then there's also the book called Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily and Amelia Nagowski. I haven't read it yet, but it is on my list, and I've heard a lot of people talking about it, so that would be a great resource. Obviously, the last thing you want to do when you're in burnout is to be told to read a fucking book.
Yeah.
But they also have a workbook, a YouTube channel, and a podcast. So you can kind of like piggy dip your toes in there.
Ooh.
And
as long as I don't have to read, I'm happy.
Yeah. I'm sure there's an audiobook version.
Ooh.
So, or you could even read it as you're working your way out of burnout and you're finally in the place where you could read a book, reading it so then you don't fall back into that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Because burnout isn't just like it's a pervasive cycle, we're constantly putting ourselves through these stress cycles, and it can, I feel like I've gone through burnout like 5 different times in my life already, so learning how to avoid it for the next time can be helpful, even if it's not going to like pull you out of this current one. And then some things to keep in mind before we start. The symptoms of burnout, which I'm going to go over, can overlap with or look like depression. Episodes of burnout can spiral into depression and lead to suicidal ideation because, you're not able to get anything done. You've lost all motivation to even do the things that you care about, and you feel like super hopeless. But it's important to note that burnout and depression are different, although, like I said, they can be very much related, and burnout is one of the leading causes of suicidal ideation amongst autistic individuals who already have higher suicide rates than the general population. Isn't that cool?
Yay!
Yay! And
what a downer.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
This is a bummer of an episode.
Bummer.
But there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay.
There is hope.
All right.
I have some things to do, so it's just good to know about instead of being like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why can't I find motivation to do even the things I care about? You could be in burnout, and it's good to know about yourself. The symptoms of burnout can also fit with other medical conditions like menopause, a vitamin deficiency, hormone dysregulation, depression, chronic fatigue conditions. So it's just important to keep that in mind. And like always, this episode is not a diagnostic tool. It's more of a jumping off point to consider this for yourself as you're like wrestling with these symptoms. It's just one of many options. All right. What is burnout?
What is burnout?
What is it?
What is
I will
it?
tell you.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're supposed to, you've prepared an episode, right? You're going to take the lead? You got it?
Let me take the lead on this.
Yeah.
It's a firsthand account.
Yeah. All right. Autistic burnout is a long-term condition in autistic people characterized by an exhaustion of internal resources. I think that's a really good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
The term autistic burnout is often used by autistic individuals to describe a state of incapacitation, exhaustion, and distress in every area of life. Informally, autistic adults describe how burnout has cost them jobs, friends, activities, independence, mental and physical health, and pushed them to suicidal behavior. I've seen so many autistic women on TikTok who are like, yeah, I used to be a high-powered lawyer, and now I can't wash my hair. Like, the effects of burnout are crazy.
Wow.
Like with all things related to autism and ADHD, of course, there's not been much research done on autistic burnout. A literature search for autism and burnout produces publications on family, teacher, caregiver, peer, and other burnout related to caring for or being around autistic people, but no studies on burnout in autistic people themselves. So all the articles are about like, are you the family member burnt out from like having to care for your burden of an autistic sibling or whatever, Which is,
caregiver burnout is a real thing.
Very valid.
Whether you have a child with autism, whether you have a sick partner, it's a real thing. We see it a lot in healthcare where, they're the patients in the hospital or they're sick, but then their partner, you can see them like fall apart and it's sad. Or they come in through the emergency room and they're like, I can't be here. I have, my disabled wife at home I have to care for. And I'm like, buddy, you got to care for yourself before you care for your, disabled wife or whoever. But it's so tough to be in that situation. So that is real.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Wouldn't it be great if they also talked about people with autism?
Yes, experiencing burnout.
Yes.
It's just very telling of where we are as a culture. We're talking about the burnout for the caregivers, but not the burnout for the actual person who's like living that.
Right.
Like, oh,
Right.
is it hard to care for an autistic person? Imagine being that autistic person, you know, where you also have the sensory sensitivities. You also have that sensitive nervous system. Like, and then, God forbid, you're an autistic person caring for
Right.
another autistic
Right.
person. Like, you know, it's very genetic. So you
Yep.
could be a parent who has an autistic child.
With needs and sensitivities.
Yeah. And then you're both, you know, hitting burnout at the same time.
Right.
So there's a lot of need for more research into this. And yeah, obviously, care for anyone experiencing burnout is important, but it's like particularly important for autistic people who have these really, really sensitive nervous systems. And essentially, like, we just become extremely disabled by burnout. It's not, it's hard. Like, I've heard people talking about how we really need a different word for it because, you know, neurotypical people will use the word burnout and it's like, oh, I'm really burnt out. Like, I'm just like tired of doing this job.
Yeah.
For autistic people, when we are in burnout, it's like my nervous system cannot allow me to do even the most basic daily functions I need to like continue living.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, I need like a long weekend or a vacation. It's like my nervous system is shutting down.
Like the thought of taking a shower is like agony.
Yes, exactly. It's like you can't get yourself to feed yourself.
Right.
So 2 recent clinical articles reference autistic burnout as an issue to be considered, and only a few other recent articles casually mention burnout as a potential consequence of poor social support or masking, which is camouflaging yourself to conform to social pressures. And like no one really includes that as a research priority. So hopefully by doing more episodes like this,
Yeah.
we can kind of raise awareness, and hopefully in the future there will be more legit studies and information coming from autistic people who have experienced this. And like we've talked about before, that is one of the best resources to learn about all of this stuff, especially when either there's no research on it, there's poor research, or the research is done from like that outside observer
Yeah.
position. You know, a lot of the research out there.
Planet Earth.
Yeah, exactly.
The BBC
spectacle. of,
camera
like,
crew.
how can we get these autistic people to stop being so annoying? You know?
That being said, I love Planet Earth.
Yeah, I do too. All right. So what does it look like? Autistic burnout usually looks like pervasive fatigue, increased sensitivities, loss of executive functioning skills, decreased ability to manage emotions, and difficulty adapting to change.
This is me.
Do any of those sound familiar to you, Kristen?
Check, check, check.
Yeah, great.
100%.
You nailed it. Wait till I do the checklist.
Yes.
You're
Oh,
going to crush
God.
it. One of the primary driving factors of autistic burnout is the attempt to function in an allistic, aka non-autistic world without the supports that we need. So this article was saying that high masking autistics are the most susceptible to autistic burnout because masking takes a huge amount of energy and work from the brain, and therefore reserves are diminished faster and more dramatically. We are also less likely to have the supports in place that we need to be able to manage our needs. So especially if, you know, if you are a high masking autistic and maybe you didn't know you were autistic before you hit burnout, that I feel like that's a driving factor that causes a lot of people to get a diagnosis or to start looking at this for themselves because they were fine before. They were managing their symptoms or traits by just using their nervous systems to push through things, you know, like you've just been like pushing through. And it's like,
yeah, it's not great.
Yeah. And then you hit a point where you just can't do that anymore.
Yeah,
and it's
you like kind of melt as a human. It's like not really fun.
Yeah.
Wouldn't recommend it.
And it's like all of the structures that you've put in place to kind of accommodate yourself, whether you knew you were doing it or not, all of a sudden those don't work because your structures for accommodating yourself were like, just make yourself do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just force
will
yourself
to do it.
Just pretend you're a robot.
Right.
And those aren't.
They work up until a certain point, and then when they collapse, it's like, it's not like a slow fall. It's like all of a sudden nothing works.
Yep. And then you're left with nothing.
Nothing.
You
Just
have
crumbles.
Yeah. Because, you know, whereas someone who maybe knows they're autistic and has proper supports in place from the beginning, which I know is still rare, just because you were diagnosed as a child doesn't mean you like have this great, magical, wonderful life where everyone supports you and you're, you know, well supported by yourself. But if you are, you know, one of those special individuals who has been able to build in actual like autistic forward accommodations for yourself, you know, ones that don't try to just blow past your needs and hide them and force yourself through it, but ones that actually like support your needs have built in enough rest, have built in nervous system regulation, sensory regulation, you're going to have a much easier time to manage your autistic traits because you're actually managing your autistic traits. You're not just trying to pretend they exist or pretend they don't exist and blowing past them.
Right.
So it makes sense that this, affects high masking autistic people the most because we're kind of just trying to ignore it until it becomes too big of a problem to ignore.
Right.
So for the clinical definition of autistic burnout to be met, symptoms must be present for 3 months.
Yeah.
Which, Kristen, yes, check.
Nice. How about like 3
on that
years?
one. And I am going to take you through the autistic burnout symptom checklist.
Oh.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First, we have physical symptoms.
Yes.
This is feeling physically exhausted, not due to illness.
Yes.
Yes. Feeling as if all of your internal resources have been used up, feeling depleted, needing to sleep more, and finding it hard to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Nailed that section.
Yep. Nailed it.
Yeah. And like I said, this is not like a diagnosis tool. This is just because it's not burnout isn't in the DSM to begin with. But this is just a tool for you to say, hey, wow, I'm experiencing a lot of these symptoms. What can I do about this?
Right.
So cognitive symptoms.
Yes.
Feeling mentally exhausted.
Yes.
Slowed down thinking.
Yes.
Finding it hard to think.
Sometimes. I feel like I think a lot.
Yeah.
Finding it hard to think about the things I'm supposed to be thinking about.
Yeah. Hard to focus your brain.
Yes.
Yeah. Decreased ability to solve problems.
It depends on the problem.
Yeah. Finding it hard to find the right words for things. Memory problems.
Yeah.
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 I know. Some of these are isn't that just all the time?
Yeah, all the time. ADHD, dyslexia.
I know. It's hard when you got all that stuff thrown in there.
I got things going on.
And some people have been like, aren't these just all like traits of autism? But I think it's kind of like how we can't study autistic people who don't have CPTSD to kind of like suss out the difference because it's really pretty much impossible to find autistic people who don't have CPTSD, where I think finding autistic people who haven't hit some kind of burnout is probably really difficult unless they're children, or unless they've been accommodated their whole lives. So it's like, yeah, what is just autism and what is autistic burnout? I don't know. But essentially, however you were functioning before, you've lost a bunch of that function. So memory problems, needing longer than usual to understand spoken language.
Yeah.
Loss or deterioration of work-based skills. And like I said, there are a lot of people who were like, I was a high-powered whatever. I was a CEO. I was a lawyer. I was a doctor. And now I can't meet my most basic needs.
Right, right. I think I with like the memory problems, I mean, that's always there. But also I feel like sometimes I get stuck on making a decision, and you kind of just like dwell on it and you're like, I really need to like make a decision.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm about to go into executive functioning symptoms, and that's literally one of them is finding it hard to make decisions.
Yes.
Because that's an executive functioning.
Like, it's almost like, if Ian's like, where do you want to go to eat or where do you want to order out? And you're like, and Christopher said this to me before. He's like, I cannot make a decision. So sometimes I'm like, I pick two and you pick one of the two. I find that works really well.
It's a good way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'll talk about it a little bit later, and you're obviously free to add in your own workarounds like that. But yeah, one of my workarounds to kind of help your executive functioning aspect of burnout is to take away as many decisions as possible, to like simplify things and not have to even make decisions like that,
Yeah.
So the executive functioning symptoms, difficulty with changes in routine, and obviously that is already a trait of autism, but like whatever you were experiencing before, it's just maximized.
Yeah.
And I definitely experienced that.
I experienced that so hard when I'm not in burnout. I get like irrationally upset.
Yeah, you have always been like that.
I've always been like that. It's like one of my things. Yeah. We have a routine or we have a plan, and then it's like a last minute change in plan, and I like cannot deal because I don't know. I can't like deal with the change in the plan. It really, really upsets me.
Yeah. For me, it depends, but there are certain types of changes in routine where it like makes me mad. Like I feel myself getting so angry
Yeah.
inside my body where
That's
it's like,
a
how
irrational-
dare you?
And you know you're
Yeah.
like, I'm not supposed to be that upset.
Yeah,
It's not a big deal.
This is so rigid of me.
It's you're like aware of it, but you can't help it. And you're like, I'm gonna throw something. That's how I feel. Like I'm gonna like break something.
Yes. I feel so mad.
Yeah.
I need to like go scream in my pillow because it's like activating your nervous system, you know? It's not just us in our brains. It's like a physical thing happening.
Yes.
All right. Also, struggling to plan your day. That's a big one that I definitely hit a lot when I was in burnout. Finding it hard to start planned activities. God, yes.
Yes. Even things that you enjoy.
Yep. And once again, of course, it's going to lead to depression.
Yes.
Because you're not able, to even do the things that you want to do, let alone the things you have to do. Of course, you're going to feel like a piece of shit, you know?
Right.
Losing focus easily. Difficulty switching between tasks. So those transitions, which once again are already hard for ADHD and autism, but especially when you're going through burnout, switching tasks just can feel like totally disabling.
Right.
And then, like we said, finding it hard to make decisions. All right, the social symptoms, which I have definitely, this is why I think the social symptoms of burnout are why I was like, okay, I am autistic, you know, because for the last 10 years, I've been like, am I? I don't know. I'm not really sure. I don't feel like I fit all the things. And then I feel like as, you know, in the last 3 years, I really have hit burnout bad. And all of a sudden I'm like, I can't socialize at all. I'm like so awkward. I'm overthinking everything. It leads to so much anxiety. I feel like I don't have any socializing skills at all, you know? So difficulty or discomfort when trying to socialize. Yes.
Yes.
Do you do the thing where you look outside your window before you leave the house to make sure you're not going to have to run into a neighbor who you have to make chit chat with?
We're on a busy street, so no.
Well,
Plus,
no offense to any neighbors listening, but I do that because I just don't. It's not that I don't want to see them. It's that even just having to make my brain work for those 3 minutes of trying to figure out, you know, what do you say? When do you leave? How do you exit the situation?
Right.
How much are you supposed to talk? All of that feels so overwhelming to me that I would literally rather stand inside the doorway until I see them leave in their car and then go. So autistic of me. How did no one catch this? Difficulty or discomfort when trying to communicate, avoiding social situations. Yes, like I just said. Talking to people feels like too much effort. Yes.
Yes.
Even like responding to text, even having to come up with what to say in a text.
Yes.
Even to a friend, you know, even like to you sometimes.
I'm so guilty of that. Like I'll look and then I'm like, sometimes I just do like the thumbs up being like, I've read it. I've comprehended it.
Yeah.
But I just really have a hard time like responding.
Well, that's a good accommodation because I would just like not respond at all, feel super anxious about it and stressed. And then, you know, the problem becomes even worse. So I feel like doing something like giving a thumbs up to acknowledge you've seen it that's a good strategy. Yeah.
And I don't want to like I feel bad, like, especially if it's someone who texts like you where you like write a whole novel and I'm just like, yeah.
I'm never offended.
Well,
by
I know
that.
You're not offended, but other people might be, you know, if they
Fuck
like
'em.
write like a novel and I'm just like, thumbs up, heart.
Yeah. Well, then they're maybe not your types of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, difficulty thinking of how to respond when people talk to me. Yes. I feel like my brain is just like blank.
Yeah.
I feel so awkward. I don't have anything to contribute right now. Unless it's bringing up my special interest and then I'll talk way too much and then feel a lot of shame about it.
I felt like I used to be so good at small talk and now I'm not.
Same.
I've lost that skill.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever had it.
Yeah. Were we actually good at it?
Were we actually good at it? And I'm like, at work, I'm always making small talk, but I'm not. I'm always talking about work stuff.
Yeah. You have a set subject.
I have someone's given me the subject. But if it's just like, could you imagine going to a party where you only know like 2 people?
No.
I would
wanna
cry.
Throw up thinking about it.
And it's like one of those parties where you just like kind of like sit and you sip beverages. You don't like have an activity planned.
Yeah.
Like that. We used to do that all the time.
Yeah. Well, there was alcohol involved.
Yeah. But like still,
if I have alcohol, I'm probably not doing a good job socializing, but I feel less anxious about it.
Yeah. Well,
you know?
because you're like drunk.
I have more to say. Yeah.
more
it's
to
not
say.
appropriate.
No. And you usually end up bringing up a special subject anyway.
Yeah.
So
and
you're
then
like
just monologuing.
I'm going to chat your ear off. You're going to hate it.
Get ready.
Yeah, get ready.
Yeah.
Take a seat.
Either that or I say nothing, you know?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
one or the other.
It's so hard to I don't know. Talking is hard. Unless it's I need direction in the subject. But I can't just be and then where are you from? What do you do for work? And you're oh, this is killing me.
Yes.
I don't want to get to know you that way. Maybe the first 2 seconds, just give me a quick hi, I'm 47 and I work as a teller at the bank. And I'll be great.
Yeah, a little elevator pitch.
Yeah, a little elevator pitch. And then I'm great. Let's get deep dive into something whether or not you think centaurs wear sweaters, you know?
Yeah.
That's how I want to get to know a person.
Same.
I don't want to hear about water cooler talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only is it boring, but I never know how much information I'm expected to provide.
Yes.
So then I'm just word vomiting.
Yes.
So I'm how much, what's
What do you
enough?
want to know?
Yeah. How much do I share when it's an open-ended?
Let me.
Yeah. So tell me about yourself. I'm this, sit down. You
Yeah.
got 3 hours? Or
Yeah.
it'll be I don't know, nothing.
Yeah. I'm either way overdoing it or I'm just hey.
Yeah. I'm not able to correctly assess how much information is being asked from me.
Yes.
It's so awkward. Just existing is awkward.
I know.
I hate it.
Hate that.
I wish I could just.
Yeah. I feel my social skills have definitely, and I was oh, maybe since COVID, my social skills have gone down, and which is definitely true. But I also think that I'm just done trying.
Yeah. Well, you're hitting burnout. And
Yeah.
that shows how much energy and effort it takes for us to even make that type of small talk to begin with, you know? We were never good at it. We had just learned how to mask. And as you hit burnout, you can't really mask anymore.
You're fuck it.
Yeah. So I'm oh, I have none of these skills. I was just forcing myself through them. All right. Also under social symptoms, difficulty selecting the right, quote unquote, facial expression when interacting. Yes. I don't know how to hold my face.
I guess
you've just got a flat affect.
I got a flat face.
Often.
Yeah. A flat affect. It's never and maybe it should, but it's never been something that I think about actively.
Yeah. So
do people do that?
Yes. I think about it constantly.
Do neurotypicals think about it?
I think they just do it. I'm sure they'll think about it to an extent, but it's not every single second in a conversation.
Yeah.
Mine is always, I'm just thinking about how should I hold my face? Should I be smiling? Should I be looking interested? How do I show that I'm looking interested? How do I show that I'm listening? Because part of that is ADHD masking as well. My, automatic response is to just always be looking around. I don't like eye contact and I'm always just looking around, I'm always getting distracted by stuff. And so I'm trying very, very hard to make the right amount of eye contact, which I don't know what that is, at least look at their face or make eye contact sometimes and be holding my face in a way that shows that I'm listening. And all of that takes effort. It's so much effort to do. But yeah, some of these, if you weren't masking them already, of course, you're not going to have trouble, masking them now.
Well, I'm trying to think because I'm thinking in a social situation.
You do you have a flat affect. You always have. Yeah. So.
All right.
That's kind of nice that you haven't been having to mask that,
Woo!
Who cares?
Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I know I roll my eyes a lot. Usually at the surgeons when they do something I don't like.
Here's what I'm realizing I do because I'm not really looking at people's faces very often. I'm very unaware of how much people are seeing my face. So I think I do shit like that, rolling my eyes or,
doing the nose rubs.
Yes. Yeah. Itching my nose or kind of, picking with my nails or whatever. I'm doing all these things. So I'm well, no one's really paying attention to me. But I think people are. I'm not paying attention to them.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you realize, I think this has happened to me, when you realize someone's looking at you and you're ugh.
I hate it. Yeah. Or people be are you okay? I'm what do you mean? I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's just how my face is.
Yes.
Don't look at it.
Don't look at me.
Look away.
Look away.
Yeah.
Find something else to do with your face.
Yeah. Look elsewhere. All right. Discomfort associated with eye contact.
Yes.
And that's a big thing. I don't know if it's because someone pointed it out to me that I don't make good eye contact and now it's all I think about.
Oh.
Or if it's because I think it's gotten worse with burnout.
Someone pointed it out to me and in college, pre all of this.
Yeah.
And I was I make enough eye contact. They're we've never seen your eyes. And I'm oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a thing.
it's the worst when they say it as if like it's this obvious thing about you of like, oh, that's how my friend Billy said it to me. She was like, oh yeah, and you don't really make eye contact.
That's like
I'm
how
like,
they
what?
describe me. They're like, she's blonde, she talks really fast, she'll never look you in the eyes. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And
That's
I never
not me, but
I
it
never
is.
noticed that about you because I wasn't, although I guess you make even less eye contact than I do. And I do notice it about you. But I'm never like, oh, why won't Kristen look me in the eyes? I'm like, good. I feel more comfortable too. We can both stare at the wall while we talk to each other.
It's like I can't even take directions or anything when I'm making eye contact because all I'm seeing is eyes.
Yep.
And usually eyebrows. I'm usually looking at eyebrows is what it is. I can't even look people in the eyes when I'm trying to look them in the eyes. I'm looking at their eyebrows.
Yeah, which is a trick that you can do to make people think you're making eye contact. But I'm like, they'll know. Won't
They'll
they know?
because I'm like, eyes glazed over looking at, especially if they're like messy eyebrows.
You love an eyebrow.
I love an eyebrow. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So there's discomfort associated with eye contact, and then there's also not knowing how and when to make eye contact, which once again, already an autistic trait that not everyone, but a lot of us struggle with. And then with burnout, it just becomes so much harder. And also they've done studies that show that for some autistic people, when they make eye contact, it lights up the fear center of their brain.
Ugh.
And that is really what I feel.
Really?
Like for certain people or certain situations, I feel like panic in my brain making eye contact. And that's all I'm thinking of.
Yeah. I'm like, God, I'm just like, I wish I could watch me in the past. Like when I Serial went on these like one hit wonder dates.
Yeah.
Where you'd like
go
on one date.
I'd pay for that footage.
Oh,
it'd be so awkward.
it was so awkward.
I bet you were so awkward on first dates,
I know
especially.
for sure I was like a word vomiter.
Yeah, you're probably just info dumping.
And then they'd be like, wow, she's like really talkative. She must be really into me. And I'm like, I just like to talk about my special thing.
I would do this in a room by myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't flatter yourself. All right. So then we have emotional symptoms. So difficulty managing emotions, easily overwhelmed by my emotions.
Yes.
Mood swings, increased number of meltdowns or shutdowns, increased intensity of meltdowns or shutdowns, and feeling at increased risk of having meltdowns or shutdowns. So it's just things send you into a meltdown or shutdown much more quickly than they did before.
Yes.
Yep.
I find that lately, I was actually going to bring this up separately. I don't know, maybe this must be burnout. I've been like having these, and they're usually around like house chores. This happened the other day. I got home from work and I needed to shovel because of the snow. And so I get out there and and I'm shoveling and it's taking forever and my back hurts and Christopher's like nowhere to be found. And I'm like this like blind rage of like, I am so upset.
Yep.
He got home before me, didn't even offer to help.
That motherfucker.
Fucking just like, I'm going to rip into him. And I get inside after I'm done. I like get inside and it's like vacuumed and dinner's in the oven and the house is cleaned. And I'm like, damn it. God damn it. I'm so happy. And I was so mad, but then I was so happy. And now I'm like, but I've been getting these like, or if like, even at work, if like, I don't know how to like control it, but it sends me for like a brief moment in time until I can like take a breath. I'll be like sent into a blind rage. Like even like a patient will kindly ask, oh, I know you just sent all my meds to the pharmacy. I would like to use a different pharmacy. And I go, no problem. And I leave the room and I'm just like,
yeah.
It's literally 2 seconds of my time. It's never an issue.
But it's an inconvenience. It is an issue. That's another task that you have to do.
Yes. And it's not on the patient because they need to pick up their meds at the pharmacy. Whatever pharmacy they want to go to is the pharmacy I'm going to send them to. But I'm just like so blindly mad.
And that also changes your plan, so it's a disruption in your plan. And it's yet another thing that you thought was crossed off your task list.
That being said, if you're a patient of mine, please tell me what pharmacy you want to it's totally fine to change pharmacies. It's fine.
Yes. But
It's
it's also
never-
okay for you to have this reaction. It's your nervous system. It's
But
not you
it's like
being a bitch in
for
your
like
head.
a brief moment of time. It's
But
just
this is
this, like
what-
blind rage,
and this
it's,
is what burnout is, Kristen.
it's crazy.
It's
I
the
hate
littlest
it.
tasks.
And
yes.
I'm like, why am I so upset? And I'm like, and I do this with like Christopher. I'm like, I'm gonna leave him.
Yep.
And then I'm like, wow, that was quite the overreaction on my part.
Yep.
Maybe I can, solve this in a peaceful manner. It's just this like, oh my gosh, I like don't even. It's frightening, is what it is. Is that you could be so angry about such a little thing.
Yep. It's essentially like for other people who aren't in autistic burnout, it's like, when you've had like a crazy long day, you're so exhausted, maybe
Mhm.
your kid is crying and, you've had all this stuff to do and nothing's working right. And the whole day's been overwhelming. And then you like are walking in the kitchen and your sweater gets snagged on a knob and you just like
Oh.
have a total meltdown
Yes.
because it's like this one thing's pushing me over
Right.
the edge. That's how it feels with burnout all the time,
Yes.
regardless of the day you've had. It could happen at 8 a.m. in the morning
Mhm.
and it causes that level of meltdown as if it was the end of a super long day.
Yes.
This is pushing me over the edge. It's like any little thing.
Yes.
Because your window of tolerance when you're in autistic burnout is much, much smaller. It does not take much to dysregulate you because your nervous system is already so dysregulated.
Mm.
So
It's wild.
Yep.
The mood swings. And I'm like, what is happening to me? And
burnout. It's burnout. It's burnout.
But yeah, it's the blind rage has been
Mhm.
happening. And I'm just like, maybe I'm just an angry person, but I don't think I
No,
am.
you're not.
I think I'm just tired.
And like I said at the beginning of this episode, a lot of people report that autistic burnout can ruin relationships,
Mm.
friendships, like obviously work, like all these different things because you're not, you're probably popping off at your friends or like your
Yeah.
dog or whatever, like little things that you could manage before are just the smallest things cause these huge reactions all of a sudden. And like we've talked about, because you don't have any structures in place to handle this level of overwhelm, you don't have anything in place. So you don't have any accommodations for yourself.
Mm.
Your accommodations before are, you weren't as sensitive to it and you would just push your way through it.
Mm.
And now it's like,
But now it's getting
can't do that.
worse.
yeah,
It's like, and then I'm like, am I just old? Am I
No.
older?
it's burnout. I'm telling you, stop pondering.
There's
It's
gotta be
burnout. That's
There's
why.
got to be an explanation.
If only there was some kind of
some
answer.
sort of answer.
All right, let me finish this checklist and then we
Okay.
can talk about solutions.
Okay.
Because I want you to dedicate yourself to working on some solutions because the only way through is by essentially resting.
Ugh.
All right, but before we get there, last section on this is sensory symptoms.
Okay.
So that is engaging in more stimming, which is sensory input
Yes.
seeking behavior. So you're probably,
Yes.
seeking out more of those comforts.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm stimming like a motherfucker.
And you should. There's an accommodation. Let yourself stim as much as you need. Finding it hard to suppress your stimming. So maybe you're doing more like weird vocal noises.
Yes.
Maybe you're shaking your leg more. Maybe you're
The
touching things
leg
more.
shakes and my little pats, my
Yeah.
thigh pats.
You're probably doing more thigh pats.
doing all the thigh pats.
Yeah. And then probably also like watching and listening to things that are like, musical stimming or I don't know, bringing you some sense of comfort as opposed to like reading things that are boring and harder for your brain, like seeking out more and more comfort things like
Yeah.
TikTok and that kind of
TikTok,
thing. Scrolling,
Candy Crush again.
Yep. That's like a form of stimming.
Yeah. I see.
Yep.
It's all
Being
making sense.
right.
It's all coming together.
Good. I'm glad. I don't want to say I did this episode specifically to convince you that this is what's happening,
Oh,
but
sorry, Mike.
I did this episode specifically to convince you that this is what's happening.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I'm going to bully you into taking care of yourself, as is my way.
How dare you?
Yes. Aggressive love. Other sensory symptoms, being bothered by everyday noises. So like we talked about, that smaller window of tolerance. It
Yeah.
doesn't take nearly as much as it did before to dysregulate you.
Mm,
So little noises can be like, Jesus Christ!
yeah.
Finding everyday sensations difficult to tolerate. So maybe you can't wear the same clothes that you were wearing before. Finding everyday smells difficult to tolerate. Finding everyday sights difficult to tolerate. And finding certain foods difficult to tolerate.
Mm,
So all of that can be so dysregulating and make it hard to even get into a routine. So let's say you have all these safety foods that you've just been like relying on having and eating.
mhm.
Now all of a sudden you can't even handle your safety foods.
Right.
And then you're fucking starving. You can't get yourself to eat. Talk about dysregulation,
I guess, yeah. So like I had this safety food breakfast, which was perfect. And then I got bored of it.
I hate that.
It was so heartbreaking.
It's the worst.
So now I'm like trying to figure out what else to do. But what's happening recently is I'm really having a hard time with the executive function of like cooking and doing, which luckily Christopher does most of the cooking. But even when we're doing like what we call get your ownies, which is just like leftovers or whatever you want.
We call that scrounging.
Yeah.
I like get your ownies.
Get your ownies. Yeah. I think we learned that on TikTok. I don't know. Christopher came up with it, kind of. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm giving him credit.
All right.
So we do get your ownies, but like sometimes instead of get your ownies, I'll just not eat because I just, the executive function to get up and even like make toast is just too much. It's just hard. And then you're like, I'm hungry, but whatever.
Guess I just, won't eat.
I guess I won't eat, which is terrible.
Yeah. And then you'll be even more emotionally dysregulated because now you're hungry.
Right. Now you're hungry and you're sad. And you can't like even, and it's the same with showering. You're like, oh, my scalp is really itchy and I feel gross and I know I'll feel better with the shower, but it's the executive function of like getting up, getting the clothes. And yeah, it's just.
And then you're uncomfortable, and then it's just this pervasive cycle.
Yes.
Yeah, where we can't do these things, and that makes the burnout worse.
Ask me, how many times did I wash my hair this week?
How many?
Once.
Wow.
Yeah.
Luckily, it looks nice.
Well, I mean, I washed it yesterday, but it was an event, and luckily I work at a job where I just put a little scrub hat on, so that's what I did.
Nice. Yeah.
That's the other thing is like, it's just and it almost sounds like depression, right? Because and I know you just said that they were linked, but it's the same thing. It's the transitions. It's the executive function. It's I feel like a child almost sometimes.
Yes.
Right.
I need a
like,
caretaker.
Yeah. And we've talked about how I'm trying to get to bed on time. That's like my biggest thing. I get really frustrated at myself, another irrationally angry. And I do it to myself. Like the other day I cried before bed because I didn't get to bed on time.
Oh.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, then you're up crying and it's even later. And I'm just like, blah!
But there's no logic to it. You're trying to like logic your way out of it, you know?
And I do it to myself because I go on TikTok and then I'm like, oh my God, it's like 11 o'clock and I have to be up at 5, you know? It's crazy.
But that's what burnout is.
So, and then it's so wild. And then, you know, you have Christopher who's like, you know, basically turning into a caretaker, whereas he's also in the throes of burnout and going through some stuff. And so he's like, you got to get up. You got to get off the couch. You've got to, you know, let's brush your teeth. And, you know, you're just like, oh, my God. And then part of it, I'm like, don't tell me what to do. Yeah. But, like, someone should tell me what to do.
Yes, because
someone should, because I'm not telling myself what to do. So it's like, and then you get, like, upset and you're like, I should be able to do this, but how come I can't? It's, like, so frustrating.
Yep. But if you think about it in the context of burnout, you know, you're thinking, I should just be able to do that. That is you just expecting yourself to use your nervous system, to use your adrenaline and anxiety to just force yourself through.
Yeah, well, it worked.
Yeah, it works until it doesn't.
Like, when did I start burnout?
Probably since you were a child. You've always been so anxious. You've always been pushing yourself since you were a child. So I think you've been going through burnout for a long time, and now you're hitting like the end of it. Well, I just think it's important to know about yourself, you know, and to be able to have kindness and understanding for yourself instead of being like, well, and that's a big thing people talk about. We're always using this, well, I used to be able to do it. I used to be able to make myself do it, so I should still be able to do it. That's not how burnout works. It's like trying to get your car to keep driving after you've run out of gas, you know? And maybe you had a little gas can in your car and you've always just, you know, filled a little bit up to push yourself through. Now that reserve gas can is empty. And now truly the tank is fully empty. You can't just do what you were doing before because your gas is empty. There's no making a car run if it's empty on gas, you know? It's just like you can't try hard enough to make the car move. There's no like, well, I just got to push myself and hustle and grind. It's like you're out of gas. You're just not going to move whether you want to or not. All right. So why does burnout happen?
I don't know. Please tell me.
There's
I
no way
need
to know.
help.
So
There's no way to know.
Next section. Right.
It's a mystery.
No. So essentially the reason why it happens is because you've been using anxiety, adrenaline, and like so much, reserve brain energy to push yourself through uncomfortable or difficult things for so long that your brain, body, and nervous system are worn out.
Well, that's just how it's done.
It's not, though.
I don't know any other way.
I know. And that's why now that you've hit burnout, you have literally no other backup skills of how to accommodate yourself.
Any skills.
You have skills.
Period. No skills.
You have skills.
They call me No Skills McGee.
Yeah. We often call you that behind your back. No, you have skills, but when it comes to like supporting your needs in a way that like accommodates yourself instead of just like forcing yourself to do stuff, you really don't have any of those. Your skills have always been like, I'm good at pushing myself.
Yeah.
Like they always said about you, you're a really good worker, in school. Think about where that, when this started from the very beginning when you were in school.
You're fucking to the beginning.
Yes. It all goes back to the beginning. You were dyslexic, ADHD, and autistic. You had to work harder than other people just to be able to like comprehend what you're even reading. You're having to work through fucking recess. It started since you were a child. Instead of having fun and like healing your nervous system running around, you're just using your nervous system to push yourself to work harder, That's crazy. That shouldn't have been put on you. So essentially, there's no pushing through burnout because you've crashed the system that you were using to push through in the first place. So now that you've used that system to push, now you got no backups. So the longer an autistic person is working beyond their capacity without the proper supports and recovery periods, the longer and more severe the burnout will be. That also means more time and resources are needed for the autistic person to recover. So, I mean, all this comes down to like, it sucks, it's once you hit it, there's, now you need more resources in order to have the time you need to recover. So it's kind of hard to like list too many specifics about the physiology behind what's happening because, like I said, there have not been enough formal studies on the issue, but we do know that it's the result of wearing on your nervous system for a prolonged period of time. I will never stop shouting from the rooftops about your nervous system. And I think I have to do a follow-up on my first one, but I'm all about healing and nurturing your nervous system because it's like it's how everything is done, it's like your whole system. We also know that the autistic brain processes 42% more information than the holistic brain. So it makes sense that that type of brain, on top of how difficult just life is for us, that our brains, how much we're processing it, also requires more rest to recover from demands. And in our capitalistic society, no one is given the room to get enough rest, but especially not autistic people.
Yeah.
So I even think when we say we're tired, we have a different definition of being tired than holistic people. Like our baseline for being tired is so different. Like when neurotypical people say they're tired, I think for us, that's like probably they're tired is our like normal, just everyday level of functioning, So when we say we're tired, it's like I physically, couldn't even roll off the couch right now and crawl to the bathroom. Like I need someone to fucking carry me there or I'll piss the bed, Like I think even just the way, like with all these things, the way that we even talk about this, our definitions of what it means to be tired, what it means to be burnt out, like they're just different, We have different brains, different needs, different nervous systems.
I saw a TikTok, or maybe it was just an article on like Google or something, an unreliable piece of information that said that women need more sleep than men because they're often making more decisions than men throughout the day.
I have heard that for different reasons that we do need more sleep.
Oh, I heard I'd love to do one on decision fatigue.
Yeah, that's a good one.
One day.
That ties into this,
Right. Well, because I see it a lot in the hospital too. Like everything you do is a decision. And when you're making like 5,000 decisions a day, my God. Anyway.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Okay.
Yeah. All right. And finally, what can be done about it?
Yes.
Nothing.
No, there's nothing to do.
Lay down
Might as
and
well dig
give
your own
up.
grave.
Yeah. Start digging now.
Yeah.
No, there are
I
things
don't have
you
the
can
executive
do.
function to dig my own
Hire
grave.
someone to dig your grave. Yeah, you can't even dig your own grave.
I can't even.
That's so sad.
Christopher would dig my grave.
Yeah, he would. He's a nice guy.
He's
like
a
that.
nice guy.
I'd help him.
I know
All
he
right.
would.
So really, the best cure for this, most people don't want to hear this, and I know it's not always possible for people who have to keep going every day and have people to take care of. That's one of many reasons why capitalism sucks It doesn't allow for us to like take care of our most basic human needs that we need to function. But letting yourself rest as much as possible is really the main cure for burnout.
You know what I think about when you say that? Ugh.
I know.
It's like, oh, yeah, let me go sleep for 12 hours, except I have lots of things to do.
I know.
And I have cat children to take care of. And now I have a fish.
And imagine, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Imagine people who have like real children to take care of.
I know. That's
like,
what I keep saying. I'm like, how do people have real kids?
I literally don't understand.
know. I feel like I'm just barely afloat.
Same.
How do people have children? They're like, you just do it. And I'm
you
like,
just make the room for it.
What?
Yeah.
That's wild to me.
Yeah.
It's wild that people have children. What a reckless thing to do.
I agree. It's pretty nuts.
It's nuts.
So imagine you're hitting autistic burnout and you have like 4 children at home.
I can't even.
What are you going to do?
Know.
God.
We homeschooled / babysat my nephews and niece for a week. And I thought, and they were staying at my parents' house. And they're like well-behaved kids.
Yeah.
They're like, are they all ADHD autistic? Of course they are.
Yeah, genetic.
But they're pretty darn well behaved. And maybe because they're homeschooled and they're a little sheltered, probably.
Yeah.
But they all get along with each other. They all do their work. I've never been so tired.
Yeah.
I thought I was losing my mind. Because 1, I had to learn new math, which is frustrating. But 2, I was like, this is just like to continue to take care of kids when I'm just trying to like stay afloat myself. I don't know how people do it.
I don't know.
I ask people with kids all the time. I'm like, how do you have a kid? How does this work?
It's so much. And also on top of that, like, you know, on the ADHD side, like, frankly, it's really boring. Like the day to day, like obviously having kids is fantastic and fun and amazing. And there's so many like wonderful, beautiful moments. I'm not saying
I love
kids
my
suck.
nephews.
I love kids.
Yeah.
If you do have kids or you want kids, that's great for you. If you can handle it,
we have a lot of great moms on who tune in.
Absolutely.
Which is fantastic.
But the reality is the actual day to day of caring for a child is very repetitive and very fucking boring. I can't pretend with a kid for more than 3 minutes without feeling like I'm going to bash my head against the wall. I'm like, this is so dull. Every minute feels like an hour.
Right.
I'm like,
and then it's like
endlessly
the constant, endless like meal feeding.
Yep. You got to keep them fed.
Keep them fed.
They need attention.
Right.
Yeah. Other things, bath time, bedtime. You got to like get them ready. You can't even get yourself in bed.
I can't even get myself in bed.
If you had a kid who like was like, no.
I'd be like, all right, we're both staying up.
Yeah. We'll fall asleep on the couch together.
I'd be a terrible mother. Look at my cat children. They're not well behaved.
Well, they're doing okay. They're alive.
And
I feel like even if you don't have kids, which is already like an insane amount of work on your plate, I feel like because before you hit burnout as an autistic person, you know, it depends on like what you're capable of. Not everyone is like this, but a lot of us, because we do have those brains that are processing a lot of info, a lot of us are very busy and put a ton on our plates, you know, like talking about the high-powered lawyer who had this like really, really, really busy life because she was able to do it. Then you hit burnout.
Jamie has her own business.
Yeah. So you hit burnout and you've put so many things on your plate from when you were able to function at the certain level and now you can't. And now it's like...
a PhD.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's wild.
You're a surgical PA. Yeah.
How do people have kids?
I don't know.
I don't understand it.
I literally
have so much respect for like parents. It's crazy.
Like having a baby.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Well, when you have to have the baby, and that comes with like all these hormone changes and body changes. And then, you know, if you're in a shit country like the US, you've got no maternity leave.
Yep.
So you've got to just like take it off and then figure it out.
Yep.
When do you go back to work? And it's wild.
Yep.
Wild.
All right, let me fly through these.
I'm sorry. I'm glad we talked about it because it needs to be talked about. But like parents, so much respect. Yes. Not for me, but
same. Not for me at all.
Not for me
because I just couldn't do what you guys do.
No.
All right. So it's really deep rest and like honestly like being super bored is what it comes down to. So by resting, I don't mean laying on the couch and watching TikTok. I mean letting yourself be bored.
Oh.
Because if you're just on TikTok, you're just like dissociating, you know?
Yeah.
You're just getting the slightest bit of dopamine hit that you can.
Mm-hmm.
And
what about like doing an activity?
Yeah, you could do
like a crochet.
Yep, that's a good one.
So yeah, it's not just, you don't just have to like sit and stare at the wall, but you need to do things that are like low dopamine activities. Let your brain rest. Your brain and your nervous system really need to rest. If you're just laying scrolling on TikTok, and this isn't a judgment, I do this as well all the time, but it's just good to know what's happening. You're activating your nervous system if you're seeing something that's upsetting. There's a lot of shit on TikTok that's like, hey, the world's ending. Everything's on
North
fire.
Sea TikTok.
Yeah.
It's so upsetting. Oh, it's so scary.
So being on TikTok, even though it might give you the slightest glimmer of hope in your day, you know, so use it accordingly, but just knowing that it's also throwing you sometimes into that fight or flight, which is only continuing to harm your nervous system. So doing things that that just feel very boring. This looks like making your days as low demand as possible, whether that means, you know, using that 15-minute break in your day to lay down on the couch with your eyes closed instead of scrolling TikTok, all the way to the extreme of like quitting your job and finding a lower demand job. And once again, I know that may sound like a crazy thing to say.
That is crazy.
And obviously it takes a ton of privilege to be able to just quit your job. But the thing about burnout is you will reach a point where you can't just push through it anymore. Your nervous system will bring everything to a halt, whether you can afford to do that or not, whether you have the time to do it or not. Burnout doesn't give a shit about your busy schedule. Like, it's not like, well, I'm not really able to like switch jobs. It's like you might hit a point where you don't have an option. It's either that or you can't work. So if you don't find a way to manage your burnout, you eventually, not to sound scary or alarmist, but you will over time lose your ability to function. So I know it seems like a huge thing to talk about changing your career or doing something different or making, you know, taking stuff off your plate. But it's kind of like either
get rid of a kid.
Yeah. Just downsize. Yeah. Like either you take something off your plate, whether it's a kid or your job. No, we're just kidding. Don't kill your kids.
Don't kill your kids.
Don't. We're taking a strong stance.
Yeah.
We are anti-killing kids.
Kid killing.
Yeah. Not here.
We
don't support it.
Not on this podcast.
No, absolutely not.
You might not have to kill it. Just misplace it.
Yeah, or
we
send
are
it
also
to an aunt
against misplacing your kids.
Keep an eye on them. Keep track of your kids.
As we said before, have a lot of respect for parents, which is why we're not parents.
Yes, and I love kids, which once again is why I'm not having kids, because I want to continue to be able to love them and not resent them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if you are hitting burnout and you haven't had kids yet, this is something to take into consideration. You know, it's not just about wanting. It's like, will this be something that would push you over into burnout and then you're not able to function and take care of yourself or your child? I do think for autistic people especially, it's something to consider when you're thinking about having kids, you know? I can't imagine like doing fine and then you hit burnout and now you already have a child. It's like, what do you do?
What do you do?
Send them to a great aunt's house, really.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of like you find ways to take things off your plate or the burnout will force you to do it anyways.
Yeah.
So it sucks, but autism is a disability. And this is one of the many reasons, you know, it can be extremely disabling. It's your nervous system. So speaking of nervous systems, of course, I'm going to talk about not just resting, but also healing your nervous system.
Oh, who would have thought?
Oh, surprise,
Thought we were going here?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Believe it or not,
George isn't at home.
We're healing a nervous system.
Please leave a message at the beep.
Beep.
All right. So for this, you can go back and listen to our nervous system part 1 episode. Obviously, there are other podcast episodes out there on the nervous system that are even better than ours. Ours isn't the cream of the crop. So
we're there.
It's good.
There's others.
Yeah.
That, you know, maybe you could also listen to.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be your only resource.
Yes. That's a good way to put it. Ours is good, but there are other resources out there.
You don't give us enough credit.
You're right.
Yourself. You did all the research. This is a lovely episode.
I did a nice
I'm really
job.
enjoying.
Right. But yeah, so no matter how you get the information, it's just really important for all neurodivergent people and all people in general, but especially for us to learn about how to heal your nervous system, how to support your nervous system, because it's essentially like how we function. And then personally, as you know, tapping has been huge for my nervous system regulation. Not to give you more things to put on your plate, but if you do
tap it out.
Yeah.
We've said it once. We'll say it again.
Yep. We are diehard tapping fans, aka I am, and Kristen rolls her eyes. But you can go back and listen to our tapping episode. And, there's a tapping app that I use. It does cost money for a monthly subscription, but I think it's like $7 a month. But they do have some free sessions on there that you can use over and over and over and just use those ones. So you can check it out. It's really, I
wonder if YouTube has.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure YouTube has some tapping sessions.
Yep. Yeah, they definitely do. Yeah, you can find all that stuff on YouTube. So, you can find one that works for you. You don't have to use my app. I just want everyone to try it once in some form, because really the feeling in your body of relief is instant. There's nothing else that I can think of. It's not the same as yoga. It's not the same as meditation. It's not the same as anything else. It truly feels like the closest thing I can imagine to taking a pill to work on your nervous system. It's the relief feels instant. And I feel like once you've experienced it once, you're oh, that was crazy. I can't believe tapping did all that, And then you'll be more motivated to do it more. So just try a 3-minute session one time. See how you feel is all I ask of you. If you can afford to put one more thing on your plate.
Or not.
Yeah. This is just one of many options.
Be like me and just
don't and continue to spiral downward.
Yes.
Yeah, that works too.
Enjoy the spiral.
Yeah. You can do things. So these are easier ones to do. You can do a cold plunge, which could just mean dunking your face in a bowl of cold water.
That face.
Yep. Even putting an ice pack on your chest, the back of your neck or your wrist. So then you don't even have to involve water at all. Those are even the littlest things can help with your nervous system. And that's kind of an easier one than having to tap or whatever.
Do you do that when you first wake up? Plunge it?
I have it down in the kitchen usually, so I'll, wake up and blah, blah, blah. But then before I eat my breakfast, I'll plunge my face.
Oh, my God.
And it feels nice. And then also doing things like shaking, jumping, spinning, just moving your body in general, stimming in general. Let those happy hands flap, flap your hands around, wiggle your body around. It can also serve as a thing to kind of make you laugh, when you're just trying to walk around the house wiggling your body. It's good for your nervous system. And then you're look how silly I look. And then you start laughing at yourself. And that's fun. It's nice to have a smile.
It's nice.
And then speaking of smiles, incorporating joy, fun, and little wins into your day is another thing. When you're hitting burnout, you're not able to do even the things that you want to do, the things that you love, the things that bring you joy. You're often, many people say, they're not able to even engage in their special interests, which is so important for autistic people, for regulation, for happiness. So when everything feels impossible and we have an endless list of tasks that we're beating ourselves up for not doing, I know it can feel pointless to even do these tiny little steps when that mountain just feels so insurmountable. But it's important to remember that this is part of the autistic executive dysfunction, where we feel it has to be all or nothing. We don't want to get started if we can't do the task completely. So accomplishing just tiny, tiny little tasks can bring you a smidge of motivation and hope for yourself. And especially if you're celebrating them, like their huge accomplishments, which they are, and then you'll kind of start to stack them on top of each other, dopamine dominoes is how I like to think of it, where one tiny win can give you the dopamine boost to do another tiny win, and so on and so on. So it's obviously not going to cure your burnout, but it can help you avoid spiraling even further into that resulting depression.
Into madness.
Yes. And I'm not just telling you to do productivity tasks. I'm not telling you to heal your burnout by being more productive. But I'm talking about the tiniest, tiny little wins, brushing your hair, standing outside in the sunlight for 2 minutes, picking something off the floor that's been bothering you forever, responding to one person's text, eating one vegetable, or even eating anything at all. Those are little accomplishments, little big accomplishments that will give you the tiniest glimmer of hope of okay, I was able to do that. And, those hopefully will kind of
maybe life isn't too bad at all.
Yeah. Maybe I can eat a carrot, And then before you know it, you're eating a whole bushel. So
is that how carrots are counted? Bushels?
I believe so.
It doesn't sound right.
Sounds right to me. All right. And then my final tips and tricks. These are kind of some things that are mine, some things I read in the comment section of that woman Lana's TikTok about burnout. Someone said, my approach has been learning to accommodate for myself, which takes away a lot of the exhaustion that comes with decisions. So brushing my teeth in the shower, so task pairing, bringing everything I need into the room for one day, having my partner choose meals for me or limiting myself to one food. And then I also throw in there dressing like a cartoon character. Wear or a president have the same thing that you wear every single day.
I love
a lot
that.
of presidents do that.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs wore the same thing every single day.
It's one less decision.
Exactly. Having scrubs is nice because you don't have to think about that.
Yeah. I just
But-
have to, I just wear sweats to work or joggers. I usually wear
Yeah.
joggers.
Yeah. So like taking as many of those decisions out of your day as possible is great. Those are all, they seem like little things, but they really build up, especially if you're in burnout. That window of tolerance is so little that even just having to decide what shirt to wear in the morning can totally dysregulate you before you've even started the day, you know?
Yeah.
So automate as many decisions as you can. Even
Or
things.
even like if you can prep the night before too.
Yep. Yeah.
That way you don't have to, wake up and start making decisions right away.
Exactly. Yeah, because I feel like you'll also just be thrown into like that decision paralysis so much more
Yes.
easily that things just feel like totally paralyzing.
Right. So when you wake up, you're like, I guess this is what I'm wearing.
Yep.
Here it is.
Exactly. This is what's been set out for me.
hmm
And then even things like finding a show that you like that has lots of seasons. So when you do take those breaks, we don't always have to be laying in the dark, not watching anything. I think having shows to watch instead of TikToks, like the joke is that, I'm going to like have good self-discipline. I'm going to do something more relaxing. I'm going to like watch a TV show instead of like being on
Right.
TikTok. That's like the new version of reading a book instead of watching
Right.
TV.
Right.
Yeah. Now it's watch TV instead of TikTok.
Right.
But really that like fast form content where it's always switching, you're always kind of being thrown into different emotional states.
Mhm.
It's really, that's kind of like the worst
And
for
it's,
you.
Yeah. It's like, well, doesn't it like light up the same centers as your brain? And this isn't from a reliable source, as like gambling.
Yeah.
Because gambling's
Yep.
so stimulating.
It literally does. They
Yeah.
designed the app to do that, to get you addicted to it.
Yeah,
They
it's so
researched.
addicting.
They researched it. It's not an accident.
It's,
Yeah.
I love, you learn so much though.
I know.
And then you go down a hole and you're like, fuck, now I'm depressed.
Exactly. It's
God
just
damn
a
it.
risk. Whereas if you find a show that won't do that to you and that will be, some kind of like easy entertainment for you, find a show with a ton of seasons. So
Mhm.
you don't even have to make that decision of, oh, what am I going to watch? There's
Yeah.
nothing to watch. I might as well pick up TikTok. I might as well just scroll on my phone
Mhm.
and then you're depressed. Have a show that you come back to. Has lots of seasons. You don't even have to think about it.
Mhm.
You just put it on. You have that comfort there. I always
Or
like my
YouTube
comfort
channel.
shows. Yeah, a YouTube channel. Yeah, more like long form content at least. I'm not
Yeah.
saying cut out content. Obviously, it's me. I'm not crazy. I'm always going to watch TV. It's just who I am.
Mhm.
But, I also find, with myself too, that if I can focus myself on a show instead of TikTok, my brain feels so much better. And then imagine if that were a book, it's
Right.
like you can kind of work your way up to it.
Oh,
But,
work your way up to reading. Yeah.
yeah, work your way up to reading. But yeah, that's it. Those are maybe I'll have more tips in the future, but kind of deep rest and boredom
Yeah.
and taking away decisions and working on your nervous system are really kind of the tips.
Okay. All right.
Quit your job.
Quit your job.
Yeah. Kind of casual, easy tips.
Live off the grid.
Yeah. Go find a hut. Oh, and another one could be, either if you have the resources to hire people to do tasks that are overwhelming
yeah.
or, relying on family members or friends,
Mhm.
it's important for us to know how to ask for help. And this, like we said, this is a disability. It's disabling. You're
Yeah.
not being weak. It's not like silly to need someone to help you to, do meal prep or laundry or, like you said with Christopher, where he like gets you to brush your teeth. He gets you to shower.
Yeah.
Like those are all things
Get
you
yourself
need.
Christopher.
Yeah, you could have someone that calls you or someone that checks in with you if you don't have someone who can come over and help you with those
We
things.
should
or-
add this to our task tackler
Yeah.
business.
a specialty like burnout specialist.
Burnout specialist.
Yeah.
we gotta get the LLC.
All right,
Let's
yeah,
go.
Let's go. What are we doing?
Why are
we still talking here? We got to go.
We gotta go.
All right. Well, yeah, perfect, because that's the end of my episode. Like I said,
Thank you.
all of my millions of resources are down below in the show notes, so you can check those out, both the Palestinian stuff and the Autistic Burnout stuff. Nice, casual, fun, easy episode.
Yeah, that's just casual. silly sewed, you know?
Yeah, nice and silly.
Yep.
Yeah. I hope you got a lot of laughs.
Yep.
Actually, I hope you didn't.
Hopefully you didn't.
Yeah.
But I do think this is important on many levels. This is important to talk about. One, because I personally relate to it. And like I've said before, it's all about me.
Yep.
And I really appreciate you doing all this research. Thank you.
Of course.
This is
Yeah.
great. I learned a lot.
Good. I'm glad. And I hope you out there, learn some things. Like you said, you're like, I had all these symptoms separately. I didn't realize they were all connected.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
I feel like Charlie Day with the yarn.
Yep.
Again.
There is no Carol in HR.
Yeah.
This whole goddamn office is a ghost town.
That's who I feel like. If listeners have, maybe I'll do this as like a poll question. If they have any tips for burnout,
Yeah.
that would be
definitely.
great. That way, and I'll share it on the IG. That way, we can all learn together.
Yes.
That would be a great if if there's an app that really helped you or some sort of activity or life hack that helped you. I would love to hear that.
Yeah, because I think we all figure out ways to kind of accommodate ourselves, and some of them are like silly ways that aren't going to be written about in a research article, but they're like dress like a cartoon character. They can be just like silly little things that you do personally that help you, and those can be helpful for others. We're kind of all figuring this out together. So
Yeah.
any input you have is helpful. You can follow us on Instagram at Weirds of a Feather. You can email us, weirdsofafeather@gmail.com.
Find us on Facebook.
Yep.
Join the Facebook group. Lots of discussions going on.
Yep. If you have anything negative to say about anything we've said in this episode, don't. Just don't.
Not allowed.
Yeah, just please.
No, but we do.
please don't.
We always accept and welcome corrections
Yeah,
and
yeah.
more information about anything that we may have said incorrectly. We're always looking for feedback.
Yes, constructive criticism.
But if you just
make it
don't like
constructive.
it, should just not like it,
Yeah.
then we don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. Then piss off.
Yeah.
Go tell it to the mountains. All right. Yeah, I think that's it. Is
All
it time
right.
for the
For the bod.
Yeah.
I want your bod.
I was gonna, instead of doing the coffee thing, I was originally thinking like, what if we did, donations for this month would go to a cause in Gaza, but like, I don't think I have the ability to like put that together and follow through on it, which I'm nervous about. So instead, I will say, instead of donating to us this month for the future indefinitely, also donate that money to one of those places that I called out, or if you have another great resource that that money is going directly to the Palestinian people for aid, please, I would rather have your money go there than to us. So please donate there first and foremost.
Yeah.
All right, time for that bod.
Yeah. I want your bod.
Nice bod.
Today, I found this one on TikTok and I thought it was a Pokemon. Are you on the TikTok where it's
Pokemon?
It's like Pokemon, but then you have like someone who's voicing similar to David Attenborough style.
No.
Like how Charmander, like his eating, it's like they're following a Pokemon, but it's very like Planet Earth-esque.
No, that sounds like a you-specific thing.
Someone's on this side of TikTok. Reach out to me.
Sure.
So we can bond over this. It's the funniest thing. And I thought this was one of them. It ended up being a real bird. So then I was like, holy moly. It looks like a Pokemon to me. I didn't think it was real.
It does look like a Pokemon.
It's called the yellow, I put headed.
Yeah.
The yellow-headed Picathartes.
Picathartes. There's a few different types of Picathartes. We're talking about the yellow-headed, or I think it's also the white-necked
Picathartes.
Picathartes.
Yeah. Or yellow-headed.
Yep.
This is a bird that's found in Upper Guinea forests of West Africa. It's also known as the bald-headed crow because they have no feathers on their head. It's just like yellow skin, which is weird.
It is weird.
They do look like they look like not only do they look like a Pokemon, they look like they're wearing earmuffs.
Invented in Maine.
Yeah. And a fun fact is they make these little cup-shaped mud nests attached to cave walls and overhangs, and that's where they lay their eggs to avoid the rain.
That's so cute.
It's
what a
very
good idea.
cute. It's very cute little bird, but definitely didn't look real at first. Let's listen.
Let's hear it.
Also, the only clip I have of like its little quiet call is from Planet Earth, so you'll hear like fun music in the background. Good luck editing this, Christopher.
Yep. Godspeed. Sounds like a squeaky shopping cart wheel.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's cute.
It's very cute. It's a cute little bird. Doesn't look like a real bird, but
Yep. I think we nailed it.
it looks more real than that fucking shoebill puppet.
Don't get
All
started.
right. Okay.
All right. Ah! Oh! Oh!
Here's it.